Today we're going to be doing aerobic respiration, so enjoy the video. We're going to be looking at respiration. Respiration can either be anaerobic or aerobic respiration. Now today we're going to be looking at aerobic respiration, which requires oxygen, unlike its counterpart, anaerobic respiration, which does not require oxygen. Now, it's important to note that glycolysis is the first part of aerobic respiration. It is also the first part of anaerobic respiration. Glycolysis occurs in the cytoplasm of the cell, and if we look at the diagram here, we can see it starts off with glucose, which is a 6-carbon compound molecule. Now, then ATP, namely 2 ATPs, are hydrolyzed into inorganic phosphate and ADP. Now, ATP stands for adenine triphosphate and ADP stands for adenine diphosphate. We might get a question on that, so it's important to know what those two acronyms stand for. So, glucose is phosphorylated, which is where it's addition of a phosphate ion into glucose phosphate. Specifically, glucose phosphate has 2 phosphate ions, so it has 6 carbons and 2 phosphates. Then, if we look at hexospice phosphate, that is not relevant for the A-level AQA biology course, so we can just ignore that and move on to triphosphate. Now, glucose phosphate is hydrolyzed into triphosphate, namely 2 triphosphates. It's basically split apart. So triphosphate has 3 carbons and 1 phosphate, and we get 2 of them per glucose. Then triphosphate is oxidized. Oxidation is loss, reduction is gain. So triphosphate is oxidized to pyruvate, which is another 3-carbon compound molecule. Now, while that's happening, the hydrogen ions that were on triphosphate now go to NAD. So NAD is a molecule that picks up these hydrogen ions and it gets reduced to NADH, or reduced NAD. We don't need to know what NAD stands for. And then ATP is also produced in this process of oxidizing triphosphate to pyruvate. We do get 4 ATPs produced. So that gets us a net gain of 2 ATPs, as we need 2 ATPs at the start to phosphorylate glucose. We also get 2 pyruvates, as shown in the diagram, and 2 reduced NADs, or NADH. This is the first part of respiration and is very important. The link reaction actually occurs in a different place. It occurs in the mitochondrial matrix. Pyruvate moves in through active transport from the cytoplasm into the mitochondrial matrix, and the mitochondrial matrix is found in the mitochondria. So we have pyruvate in the mitochondrial matrix. It's a 3-carbon compound, not a carbon compound, it's a 3-carbon molecule. So we are going to oxidize pyruvate, which will then in turn reduce NAD to reduced NAD, or NADH. It is important to note that it is not NADPH, which is used in the light-dependent reaction. It is very important to note that, because you will get marked down if you write NADPH instead of NADH. We also lose a carbon dioxide, so that means that pyruvate moves to a 2-carbon compound, a 2-carbon molecule, which is called acetate. Acetate then binds to coenzyme A to produce acetyl coenzyme A. Now, it's important to know what a coenzyme is, and a coenzyme is a non-protein compound that is necessary for function of an enzyme. So, for example, coenzyme A, FAD, and NAD are all coenzymes, and these coenzymes work with dehydrogenases. Oxidative phosphorylation, and this is where most ATP comes from. This happens at the cristae in the mitochondria and is a confined space. So, oxidative phosphorylation, when we reduce NAD, reduced FAD, which have been produced in previous processes. So reduced NAD was produced in glycolysis, the link reaction, and the Krebs cycle, and FADH, or reduced FADH, was produced in the Krebs cycle. So we oxidize reduced NAD in order to get an excited electron, which then leaves NAD. And this excited electron then binds to one of the transport proteins. Now, this process is of moving down the electron transfer chain, and the passage of protons are now able to move into these proton pumps due to the fact that the excited electron has given it enough energy. So the hydrogen ions move in to the intermembrane space, which creates a proton gradient. Now this proton gradient allows protons to then be pumped through ATP synthase through chemiosmosis. And this pumping of protons allows ADP and inorganic phosphate to be synthesized into ATP. Now this happens multiple times and produces up to 36 to 38 ATPs per round of oxidative phosphorylation. It is important to note that protons in chemiosmosis move down their electrochemical gradient. Then finally we have the last electron acceptor before ATP synthase, which is oxygen. Now this is why oxygen is required for aerobic respiration, as it then binds to oxygen and produces water, which is then excreted. This process in general is extremely important. Most energy is produced. Okay, thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful. If you have any tips or information for further videos, then feel free to comment them down below. But I will see you in the next one.